You're listening to the CIP podcast, the Study Abroadcast, Season 2, Episode 5. I'm your host, Jacqueline. In this show, we'll explore the world of study abroad, offering advice, insights, and travel stories, bridging perspectives and cultures along the way. On this episode, we'll be speaking with the director of the School of Languages and Literatures at the University of Guelph. Let's get right into it. Today on our show, we're pleased to welcome Dr. Margot Irvine. To get started, can you tell our listeners a little about yourself and your role as the director of SOLAL?
Yes, thanks very much, Jacqueline. So thanks very much for having me on the show. So I'm a professor of French and European Studies, and I've been the director of the School of Languages and Literatures, which we call SOLAL, since about 2016. And I'm responsible there for curriculum, staffing, faculty hiring, promotions, things like that. And the school is the home to undergraduate programs in French, Spanish, European Studies, Classics, Italian, German, and Linguistics. And we have MA programs in French, European Studies, and Latin American and Caribbean Studies. And we teach about 4,000 students a year in the school. So related to study abroad on a more personal level, I've had opportunities myself to live and study abroad in England and Mexico, and I've spent a lot of time in the last few years in France in particular.
You definitely sound like a great person to have on our show to share all of your own personal travel stories and your experience in SOLAL. So, as you mentioned, all of those programs that are a part of the School of Languages and Literatures definitely seem like a natural fit for students who might be interested in studying abroad. So what are some of the benefits for SOLAL students who wish to participate in these study abroad opportunities?
Yeah, great question. So basically, I can summarize the benefits in sort of 3 words. Linguistic and cultural immersion is the major benefits. So basically, while you can acquire good language skills in the classroom, there's no substitute for hearing the language that you're studying abroad, spoken all around you, interacting with native speakers on a daily basis. And when you're in that sort of situation, after a little while, something kind of clicks in your brain and you start to think in the language, you start to dream in the language, you start to it becomes part of you. It really becomes your language and you become really comfortable in it. So there's that linguistic fluency that you can acquire in being immersed in the language every day. And also there's a kind of a cultural immersion as well that you get from living abroad too. You start to notice it could be just small differences, the way people greet each other, the kind of things that people eat, how they interact. But you'll understand more about local customs because of that. And then not to mention, you've been studying the history probably of a different area. You've been reading the literature, you've been learning about the art. But when you're there and you see how it all fits together in the country itself, it's just amazing. It just kind of becomes all clear. It's a little bit like that pop in your head with the language too. The culture also becomes clear. And I have to say that one of my favorite things in my role, because I've been working with study abroad students for a long time as a French professor, even before I was director of SOLAL, and I love meeting up with the students when they've returned from their exchanges to hear about their stories. Sometimes they say to me that, their families are kind of tired of hearing their stories at this point because they've told them so much. But I'm all ears. I love this kind of thing, like just hearing about their experiences in the different cultures and that sort of thing. And I've never heard anybody say that they regretted going. They always are, it's not always easy, but they are always happy that they stuck it out and that they did it. And some of them will say it's the best thing that they ever did. And they also, when I talk to students who are alumni now after graduation, they'll talk about how their employers really, when they've had job interviews and things like that, employers really like to hear about the study abroad experience. You've got that on your CV, and they'll ask questions about it. And it does really say a lot about a person. It shows how adaptable you are, that you're open-minded about new cultures and things like that, that you've got independence, that ability to travel abroad, not to mention the linguistic and cultural fluency as well that it brings you. So there's so many advantages. And another one is the international network of friends and contacts and things that you make as well, which is also huge. So I can stop there, but I could go on and on about this. I'm really passionate about it.
I think you touched on everything I could have mentioned about the benefits of study abroad. You really hit every point. And I can just echo everything that you said in terms of when students come back, they say that not every day is easy, but the challenges are really worth it when you have those kind of breakthrough moments and all of the good things that happen on study abroad. So I'm glad to hear you're hearing the same things. So in terms of all of these great opportunities, what are some of the more common programs that the SOLAL students would participate in?
Yeah, great question. So there are a few different exchanges that I'll mention. There are many, many, and I know CIP has a really big database of them, but the SOLAL students tend to, if you're doing French, for instance, as your language, you might go take part in the Ontario Rhone Alps exchange, which is an exchange with a region of France. And there's a bunch of universities in this particular beautiful region near the Swiss border. It's also really well placed for traveling around Europe because you can fly out of Geneva or you can fly from Lyon. And so it's really a great area to go. And I've advised a lot of students over the years who've participated in that particular exchange. French students can also, if you wanted to stay in Canada, you can go to the University of Chicoutimi in Quebec, and there's an exchange there. If for German, there's the Ontario Baden-Württemberg exchange, which is similar to the Ontario Rhone Alps. It's another provincial exchange with a region of Germany. And so with both of those two, you're kind of with a group of Ontario University students as well. And there's a bit of orientation for the students from Canada. And you've got a bit of a cohort there, which is kind of nice support when you're abroad too. If you were doing Italian, you could go on exchange to Udine or to Venice. I mean, just imagine spending a semester in Venice. I love that. And if you're doing Spanish, it's possible to go to Malaga in the south of Spain or to the University of Alcalá, which is closer to Madrid in northern Spain. And we also have some exchange agreements with universities in Mexico and Argentina. So those are just a few that are related to language that you could take part in.
Thank you. Yes, there's lots of options to learn in an additional language. And so for students who are interested in learning in another language while they're abroad, part of their application requires them to complete a language assessment form. Can you talk a little bit about that process? Because I know you're part of the French language assessment.
Yeah, thanks. Certainly. So first of all, I'd say don't be intimidated at all by the language assessment. Your professors know that you're going abroad in order to increase your fluency in the language, so we're not expecting you to be perfect before you go. But the purpose of the assessment is just to make sure that you've got enough of the language that you'll be academically successful in the universities in the country that you're studying in. So we don't want to send people who really are not going to be able to follow a lecture and have a lot of trouble submitting their assignments and that sort of thing. So basically, that's the purpose of it. And I know that my colleagues who assess for the different languages, we all have slightly different ways of going about it. But basically, I usually will just have a short conversation with the students in French. And then I'll ask them to write a small paragraph so that I can assess their written French as well. If they've done courses in French at the university already, then it's useful for me to hear about that, and I can sort of see where place them based on their background from what they've done at university already too. And also, it's a good opportunity, these assessments, to just for me to make contact with the students too, because it gives me, I can answer any questions that they have about study abroad, about the application process and stuff. I know CIP provides a lot of support around that too, but more on the academic side, sometimes I can help with course selection abroad. It's not always easy to find what courses are offered there, but since we know so many students who've gone abroad over the years and come back, I've got lists of courses and things like that that I can help with. So we sometimes get into that in the language assessments too.
That's really helpful. I know just pointing out like program counselors or maybe yourself help students a lot with the course selection and the course process, whereas CIP helps a lot with kind of like figuring things out with your host university and that application process. And so having an understanding of who students can go to, there's some resources on CIP's website to kind of find out who the best person might be for you. And so I know you mentioned a lot about the programs in some of the different countries that students could go to, and those are mostly like fall and winter semester exchanges, but some students maybe don't have the flexibility to go during that time, or they're looking for a shorter experience, maybe a few weeks long. Are there any options for students that are available maybe during the summer that they could participate in?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, there are more and more of those shorter experiences in the last few years. So I can give a few examples. In classics, we have some trips that are organized by one of my colleagues in the program, Professor John Walsh, who has been taking groups of classic students to Greece, or he'd like to go to Italy soon as well in the spring. There are some field schools. There's the Italian summer field school in Sorrento that's still scheduled to run this spring, so it's looking good for it. And that's a beautiful part of Italy and a great experience as well. And that's typically in May that they'll be doing that. The Ontario Rhone Alps Exchange also has a summer language course program that you can do and get academic credit for as well. And it runs in July, August typically, so it's the other end of the summer. And then if you wanted to work on your French and stay in Canada, you can do that through the Explore program, which is also a federal government funded program, a 6 weeks immersion program in different locations in Quebec. And then I believe there's also a summer field school to Ecuador that would be great for students maybe who are studying Spanish this summer as well. So keep an eye for those summer field schools. Basically, that's some of them. There'll be ways where you can take a language course when you're there, or integrate language experience too, if that's what you're looking for.
It's a great segue into our next question, because I was going to ask about funding opportunities for students, maybe travel grants and scholarships. And so first I'll just talk about our Gso Travel Grants that we have, which are Global Skills Opportunity Travel Grants. We have two different offerings. One of them is for field schools specifically. So students who are Indigenous students, students registered with Student Accessibility Services, or have demonstrated financial need are eligible to apply and receive up to $10,000. So it's a really substantial opportunity. If you're participating in field schools, there's one specific for you. And if you're participating in other international experiential learning opportunities, there is a grant to apply for as well. So that's offered through CIP, but is there anything offered specific for SOLAL students?
Yeah, no, that's great about the Gso Travel Grants. That's really good, a great initiative that CIP has taken on. For SOLAL, we do have some travel grants. There are two travel grants of $1,000 that are awarded when a student returns from an exchange. So, and you have to have been on an exchange that's at least 8 months in length. And there's no application really, but the awards rotate among the programs in SOLAL, so French, German, Italian, and European Studies and Classics and Spanish as well. And they're based on your highest average. So any SOLAL students who are interested or who are applying to go abroad for an 8-month stay or longer should get in touch with us and let us know, and we can give more information about those bursaries.
Oh, that's great. Nice to know. I know a lot of departments have scholarships or grants specific to their students, so students could check out Student Financial Services to find out more for your program. And so this is the last and final question. Is there anything else that you would like to add for SOLAL students who are considering studying abroad?
Yeah, well, basically, I'd just say to do it. Like, don't get discouraged. It takes a bit of effort to apply, to get all the documents that you need to get a study visa, things like that. But just stick with it. And sometimes there are ups and downs on the exchange itself, too. But as I said earlier, I've never heard a student say that they wish they hadn't done it. And your profs also are there to support you. Your profs recognize what a great opportunity it is for you to study abroad. And we really want to make it possible for you to go as well. And I know the folks at the Center for International Programs do too. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help. If you've got questions about things, as I said, we know people who've done this. We've got experience advising students over the years that we've acquired. So we're here to support you in your experience. And the skills that you learn will really stay with you forever. And that love of travel, I think, will also stay with you forever. So just do it. That's my last piece of advice, I guess.
That's great advice. And as Dr. Irvine mentioned, if you do have questions for CIP, you can reach out to us. Please send us an email or reach out on our social media channels. We're happy to answer any questions. And we really do want to send students abroad, so we're happy to support you however we can. So that's it for today's episode of the Study Abroadcast. Don't forget to explore your own study abroad opportunities on the CIP website, uoguelph.ca/CIP, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Our Instagram handle is CIP_Guelph. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Dr. Irvine for sharing your advice, insights, and travel stories. Stay tuned for our next episode where we look to unpack the study abroad experience even further.